I'm not sure how to introduce my next guest. He's a businessman who leads a most colorful life. His name has been in the papers a great deal lately, and I just met him backstage. I'm anxious to meet him further. Will you welcome, please, Mr. Joseph Colombo, Sr.
In the spring of 1971, Joseph Colombo was the reputed boss of one of New York's 5 Mafia families, a title other men had held before. Yet, on this night, Colombo decided to go somewhere, do something no boss had done before. He was a guest on a late-night talk show.
I was wondering how you answer the people who constantly imply that you're associated with organized crime.
I would say it's distressing to all people. Mm-hmm. And I would also say that to associate anybody with organized crime and just label them or stigmatize them or guilt by association or guilt by innuendo is very unfair to anyone.
A mafia boss on a late-night show. Clearly, the 5 families were in a new era, but it was no accident. This was all a part of Joe Colombo's plan, a plan that started years earlier.
A great change is at hand. This is one country, and we owe ourselves a better country than that.
The 1960s is a tumultuous decade, to say the very least. There are all kinds of social movements taking place, principally the civil rights movement, where African Americans are demanding equality and full inclusion in American society. You have women, feminists, organizing for equality.
You also have the Vietnam War that's happening at this time. All of these things lead to a lot of Americans during this era no longer trusting the government.
At the same time, the 5 families, the core of the American Mafia, was in the midst of its own period of change. By 1963, 4 of the 5 original bosses were dead. And for the first time, one of New York's 5 families would be led by an American-born mafioso, Joseph Colombo.
In the early 60s, there was a deal where Joe Colombo, he was on a hit squad to go after Carlo Gambino. And rather than carry that out, he went and let Carlo know what was happening. And as a result of that, Joe Colombo was given the privilege of becoming boss. That's how he got it. Everybody thinks that we changed the names. It's the FBI that changes the names. We didn't call ourselves anything. They changed it from Profaci to Colombo.
Joseph Colombo, born and raised in South Brooklyn. Here, the Mafia wasn't just part of life, it was life. Colombo's father, Anthony, was a made man in the Profaci family. When Joe was 14, Anthony was found murdered in a car less than 2 miles from their home. By the time Joe was 40, he was a made man, a rising star in the Profaci family. He was feared, having killed at least a dozen men for the family. In 1961, when the Gallo brothers kidnapped a handful of Profaci's men, Joe Colombo was on their list. Trusted or feared, Colombo was the future. His close relationship to leaders on the commission like Carlo Gambino made him destined for the big time.
My father looked to Carlo like a father. Carlo Gambino was the most soft-spoken, gentleman, kind old man you ever met in your life. He had a European sense of chivalry. He was very unpretentious. They were men of few words. You knew their ethics, you knew their morals, you knew their sense of what was right and what was wrong.
Carlo Gambino was an old-school Don, a valuable mentor and a vital ally for Joe Colombo. But unlike his mentor and the Dons before him, Joe Colombo wasn't born in Sicily. He was born in America. And what's more American than putting a new twist on an old tradition? Joe Colombo had a new idea of what it meant to be a mob boss in New York City.
My name is Joe Colombo. I should be treated the same as anybody else.
Joe Colombo is just a much more sensible gangster. He's got a funeral parlor, he's got a car dealership. If someone wants to talk business and the cops show up, he's just saying, I'm just showing the guy a car. He's very business-oriented.
Joe Colombo was totally innovative about how he wanted to operate. He didn't escape from the media. He welcomed the media.
The reality is that Joe Colombo is still running these extortion rackets. His family is still involved in all of these traditional racketeering operations that the family has always participated in.
A lot of loan sharking, gambling, union activity. He, strangely enough, had his own gambling operation that he ran, which was very rare for the top guy. Usually their underlings are doing all that, but he actually ran it.
He was feared because of his past history of being a hitman, a murder-for-hire guy. He was very confident, as most hitmen are, always well-dressed, boastful.
And they have to make bosses for wherever they need scapegoats. I happen to be one of the scapegoats.
As Columbo rose in stature in the criminal underworld, investigators began to take note.
All of the federal focus on the Italian-American Mafia specifically does sort of give law enforcement this carte blanche to focus on Italian-American men. And even though there's mobsters of all ilks, there is this hyper-focus on the Italian-American Mafia.
The Justice Department began to send strike forces into various cities to attack organized crime. But many Italian Americans began to protest that Italian Americans were being singled out and that they were being harassed, that even their families had not escaped the prying of the FBI.
In the 1960s, Congress empowered the Justice Department, the FBI, federal law enforcement agencies to get court orders to authorize the electronic surveillance on telephones and placing bugs in premises where there were conversations about criminal activity ongoing.
Title III of the 1968 Crime Control Act allowed law enforcement to more aggressively surveil New York City's mob families, and the Colombo family in particular. Those around Colombo, like his underboss, Sonny Francis, were under constant watch.
My dad was the underboss of the Colombo family back in the 60s, a very powerful position.
This man is John Sonny Francis. Francis, who has been arrested countless times, was described as a rising young lieutenant in the Brooklyn Mafia and one of the most dangerous mobsters in the country.
And my dad was extremely high profile in terms of media attention, law enforcement investigations. And he was arrested several times, indicted several times in the state of New York. So we had law enforcement around us all the time. They all had cars parked around our house, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
These women are the wives, sisters, and friends of the Colombo and Francis families. All of them claim the FBI is harassing their families.
Oh, you must be Joe Colombo's sister. Well, we want to get to your brother. Why? Why do you want to get to my brother? Well, we're going to put him away.
I grew up hating the police, hated law enforcement, hated the government. You know, I always saw them as harassing my dad, harassing my family.
We were all in a car. There were the seven children, and they said, "Go ahead, Sonny, do something to me." And the other one pulled a gun out of his pocket and said, "Go ahead, because I'm dying to do it."
Taking pictures or walking into your job, disrupting your place of business.
They get me upset because they sit in front of my house. They bother my husband.
Disrespectful at wakes, weddings, name it, they did it.
There is no such thing as a mafia. I'm supposed to be the sister of the biggest mafia in New York. I don't know what the word means. People want to know this about Joe Colombo? No. What they want to know about Joe Colombo, he's gangster. He's connected with every dirty thing there is. We, the family, know he isn't.
You gotta remember, this guy whacked out a lot of other mafia guys. That was his job in the Colombo family, was murder for hire. And he was hired by a lot of people, Gambino and others, to do those activities. He was a tough guy, and he was a fighter, and he wanted to fight back, and the investigative activity involving the Colombo family was pretty intense. They had a very strong squad, and it was a natural instinct. He saw the FBI coming at his family, and he fought back.
If there was one characteristic, one universal instinct of all men in the Mafia, it was to protect their families at all costs, to defend when necessary. Joe Colombo was no different. He realized early that the best defense was a good offense.
I say there's a conspiracy in this country against all Italian Americans. And I won't stop saying it until I feel that the father of our country treats us all like his children.
Mr. Colombo, are you a boss of the Mafia? No, I am not. Is there a Mafia? No, there is not.